Big business really is exchanging the climate and the health and the safety of America and our democracy for the sake of what? Tax cuts and regulatory rollbacks and more profits.
We begin tonight with the lucrative politics of climate collapse and the greed that is literally letting our country burn. Billionaire donors like Paul Singer and Joe Ricketts, to name a few, or fossil fuel industries, companies like the Coke industries, are paying politicians big bucks to poison you and dirty your air and let fires and floods destroy your homes, all so they can reap unlimited, unregulated profits. I am going to go to you first, Robert, because I feel like I've just stolen your social media for probably the last 6 months in putting this together, because you've been screaming about this, trying to get people to focus on this. Well, we are focused, my friend, because America is burning and somebody is getting paid for it. Your thoughts?
Joy, this is something that is getting really under the radar. I'm glad you're putting it on the radar. But big business, billionaires in this country are pouring huge amounts of money into our politics. We know this because a lot of things are not being done that should be done. And now that we are approaching perhaps the most important election in American history, and one of the candidates, Donald Trump, says that environmental problems and climate change are a hoax. He calls it a hoax. And Republicans are falling in line behind Trump and grabbing the money that's coming to them. A big business really is exchanging the climate and the health and the safety of America and our democracy for the sake of what? Tax cuts and regulatory rollbacks and more profits. It is really shameful. It is something that hopefully people will not tolerate. I mean, I think, we are all consumers. We all have some power, and we ought to exercise that power.
And let me just, to get you all in the audience just to understand this, the top recipients of oil and gas money in Congress, they're all Republicans, all 10 of them. I want to come to you very quickly, Mark Joseph Stern, because you've got politicians who are essentially being paid, at least their PACs are being paid, their campaigns are being funded by billionaires. But then you've got these judges, and you go all the way up to the Supreme Court. That feels like pay to play as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of the conservative justices might as well have ExxonMobil stitched across their robes like they're race car drivers. These justices are doing everything in their power to make it impossible for the government to fight the climate crisis. Just a few years ago, hobbling Joe Biden's ability to cut carbon emissions from some of the dirtiest power plants on the planet. Now poised to issue a series of decisions that makes it impossible for the EPA to bring regulatory action and penalties against big polluters that are poisoning our air and water, right? These judges are doing the dirty work of politicians because politicians realize that it's pretty unpopular for them to go out there and say, hey, these gas industries and oil industries and polluters deserve to go out and destroy the climate in the country. But if they outsource the work to judges who are unelected, who have life tenure, then they can just sit back quietly while the Supreme Court does, again, the dirty, dirty work.
And they work as a tag team, Robert. It's a tag team because you've got judges who are willing to do the work and you've got politicians who are taking money.
Fundamentally, we've got to get big money out of American politics. We've talked about this before, but the big money is getting bigger. Every election cycle, it gets bigger. More billionaire money, more big industry money, and it is not for the public interest. It is not for anything that all of the rest of us get anything out of. In fact, very often, it is just tax breaks and regulatory rollbacks, the rollbacks of health and safety and environmental protections that the rest of us need.